Okay everybody, we're back in Unity. We're going to be importing a character and setting up animations for them. Now much of this is going to be pretty easy, but some of it will require some code. Like you can see, if I'm standing close to the character, they'll wave at me. If I'm just standing somewhere near them, they won't wave, but they have an idle animation. And if I'm standing near them and I press a key to try to talk to them, then they play a talking animation. So to get started, the first thing that you'll need is a character, and then you'll need some animations, and after that, I'll show you how to hook all of this up in an animation controller with some code and get it responding exactly how we want. So first, let's jump out of our test play and out of Unity, and we're going to go to Chrome. Now when you're in Chrome, all you need to do is Google Mixamo. Mixamo should be your first return. Now right now I'm not logged in. If you already have an account, obviously you can click on login. I'm assuming most of you won't. But you'll notice that this is made by Adobe, the same company that creates Photoshop and InDesign and Illustrator, a lot of those programs that you've already used and become familiar with. So we're familiar with Adobe. This is a really cool free service that they provide. So if you don't have an account, you can click on sign up, or you can actually just click on login and then continue with Google, because we all have Gmail accounts. So you can just use a Gmail account and it's pretty painless. And now here we are in Mixamo. So it remembers the last character that I was working with, so we have this same guy here that you saw in my Unity environment. And you can see a bunch of animations over here. But before we look at these animations, I want you to go find a character that you want in your scene. So come up here and click on characters. Now I want this character to be someone that could realistically be on this Survivor island with you. So we probably don't want whatever this horrible monster is. I mean, it's pretty cool looking, but it doesn't really fit with what we're doing. So I'm going to ask you to pick some sort of a normal humanoid character. You know, even in Survivor, okay, Douglas here looks pretty normal, but we're probably not going to have somebody in like a full cop's outfit on this sort of deserted island that we're on. So you have some freedom here, but try to pick something that works with the scene that we're creating. Maybe I'll grab Megan. Megan looks pretty believable. At least not some sort of crazy monster or space marine. Now, before I go and click on download, I'm going to go look at the animations. And the first animation that I want everyone to look for is some kind of an idle animation. So in my search bar, I'm going to just type in idle, I-D-L-E. And when we're idle, that means that, well, we're not doing much. We're just kind of standing around, waiting for something to happen. Now, even when we're standing around doing nothing, well, in real life, we certainly aren't T-posing like this. Yes, the T-pose existed before Fortnite, in case you were wondering. So, even when we're standing around as human beings, you know, we're moving, we're swaying, we're keeping our balance, we're taking breaths. Just these subtle things that, if aren't included in a game, are gonna make your character look really weird. Now, we have some of these idle animations that look like they're made for fighting games, but I want something a little more subtle. And this one looks like it'll do the trick. She's taking breaths, she adjusts her footing a little bit occasionally. This looks very believable. It's certainly a lot better than a T-pose. So now, I'm just going to click download, because I want this character and I want this animation. Let's look at a few of these settings, since this is our first time. The format of FBX is actually exactly what we want. You may be tempted to use FBX for Unity because, well, we're using Unity, so this seems perfect, right? But this actually, with our version of Unity, isn't what we want to use. And just ignore this last one at the bottom. So keep the format as a regular FBX. Frames per second, we could crank it up to 30 or down to 24, but 30 is really just fine, so let's leave it there. Now, with skin, the skin is what our character looks like. So since this is our first time using this character, I'm going to say that yes, we want to download this with the skin. But next time, when I come back for, say, a waving animation or a talking animation, well, I don't need to get the skin because I already have it, and downloading it twice is just going to waste time and storage space. So this first time, we're going to keep this on with skin, but next time we'll change this. And keyframe reduction, let's just ignore this setting for right now, and let's go ahead and click download. Now this really shouldn't take too long, but be patient, it'll be worth it. You can see it's working down here in the bottom left, and as soon as it's done, I'm just going to click on this arrow and then show in Finder. Here, it's popping up in my Finder. So now I'm going to go back to Unity. To stay organized, in my Assets folder, I've created a folder called My Characters. This folder's already getting a little bit cluttered, so to make this easier, I'm going to make a new folder in here, and I'm going to call this NPC2. NPC, by the way, stands for non-player character. So a character in the game that's not a player, simple enough, that's what this is. So let's jump back to my Finder, and I'm simply going to click and drag in my idle FBX and drop it in my new folder. Taking just a minute to import it, and let's see what we've got. So if I drag in my character, well, right off the bat we'll notice that something doesn't look quite right, or at least not quite finished. The character that I demonstrated this with is fully colored. This character, well, looks kind of like a statue, even though she was fully colored when we saw her in Mixamo. So what's going on here? Well, her textures haven't been applied. So when we brought her in, we also brought in a couple of folders. If we look in the one that has the same name as her, so she's idle, and here we've got a folder that's named idle, we open up that folder, and we're going to see some different textures that we can apply to her. So let's click on her, and let's change her name to NPC2, because I don't really want her to have the same name as her animation. That's not super helpful. So when I click on her, there's not a lot to see in her inspector. But when I expand her, we'll see that we have these different parts of her. The body, the eyelashes, the hair, and pants, and so on. So if I just click on body, and go down to the bottom component, which is her shader, this is controlling most of what her textures look like. If we look at her main maps, well, she has no maps right now. So really, she just has a blank gray color covering her everywhere. The first way to fix this is to take your first texture on the far left and put this map on albedo. So I'm just dragging this texture over here to the box next to the word albedo and dropping it in, and you'll see we've already got a pretty big difference. Now on this particular model there's a little bit more to do, even just to get our basic colors working, because you can see her eyelashes and her hair still looks kind of odd. I'm going to go down to the eyelashes, and I am going to put on this texture right here. And now let's take another look. Alright, her hair and eyebrows and eyelashes and all of that stuff is looking a lot better now. Now let's go back up to the body. It may be hard to tell, but she's actually lacking a lot of detail right now. She looks very plain, as opposed to our friend over here, who has a little bit more depth and a little bit more detail. So let's see what else we can do to fix her up a little bit, because we do have some more textures here still. For example, our second one here, if we were to attach this to metallic, now in our folder this is called our glossiness texture. And if we apply this to the metallic slot, you're going to see, well, at first this feels like a pretty big mistake. This does not look good. But really what it is our smoothness is just set all the way up to 1, which 1 is actually the highest that it goes, so it's like maxed out right now. But if we start to reduce this, you'll see, well, okay, 0.67 is still too much. But when I start to get down a little bit below 0.5, now we're starting to see a realistic amount of reflection, because even a shirt and human skin does reflect light. And we want there to be some smoothness, so I've turned this down to like 0.1, and this is definitely an improvement to have some light bouncing off of this character, instead of basically just ignoring the light. Now the last maps we're going to look at are these ones that look kind of bizarre. They're like purplish and pinkish. Got some weird colors going on here. So what are these about? We certainly don't want these colors all over our character, right? Well, these are called normal maps, which are very similar to something that you may have heard of if you're into game design, called a bump map. Both of them do a very similar job. What they basically do is create an optical illusion that makes the 2D artwork appear to have a more three-dimensional feel. So this is really implying texture. Instead of adding tons of wrinkles and folds and details to a 3D model, we're going to create the effect of things like wrinkles and folds and details on the skin by using a normal map. So I'll just drag this over to where it says normal map, and you'll see that a lot of new wrinkles just showed up, or became more pronounced, and the textures on her shirt are very different. I'll do the same thing for the eyelashes. This will add a similar style of detail to her eyelashes and hair. And now she's looking just about as good as her friend standing over here. Now that she looks alright, it's time to start getting her animated. And we'll take a look at how to do that in our next video.